We back, part 3. You've made it this far. I'd like to thank you and give you a personal tip. Out of all the lures I've made, this one here has caught the absolute most amount of fish. So that's pretty much my inspiration for the one that I made here for myself. And doing so, I realized that I needed to add some of those feathers in because I still had some. So it wasn't too late. Before I put the deer hair on, which was the original plan, I'm going to stick a fine layer of these on just to pop that added look. So as I bust all these ones out to pick a good few, I realize 20 minutes later that my camera battery died. So missing footage, can't go back from that. That's alright, but I didn't do anything special with this layer other than apply it just like the purple and the white. Wrapped it all nice and tight, so I'm just trimming it up here before I add that last little collar on. Now, I always have said before, I sometimes will trim some of the tail down in certain spots afterwards, depending on if I want certain areas to pop through more than others. I almost always do it with the collars. You got to go a little bit big and then cut back sometimes. It's just easier that way. When you're working with a really small amount, it gets a little bit difficult. But yeah, we'll just add a little piece of glue to hold that thread in the spot there before I pop the collar on. This time I'll go all the way around, just because we're getting near the end. Make sure that we got a really good hold. Everything's tight. So we're pretty much going to do this exactly like we did the tail, except we can't uniformly tie it around the end, so a little bit of difficulties, but with a trial and error here. Sometimes it doesn't always happen on the first try. This is definitely the hardest part. It takes the most practice to do, especially if you're using hair as well, because it moves around so much. So I'll thin this out a little bit. Some of it is not attached to the skin. I did that purposely, so if I over amounted the fur, I could easily just quickly remove some of the amount that I'm holding and continue right away. So I'll hold it in place and try to space it out good enough. You know, give it a tight pull, not too tight though. Tight enough to make sure that everything stays in place. I'll turn that back. Sometimes they start spinning a little bit. So I noticed it's starting to slide down. That's a common occurrence. So I'm gonna have to back out. It just kept sliding right over the join. So we'll take some of the hair out. There's too much of that. Trial and error. Doesn't always work the first time. Some of it's still stuck there. Alright. So we'll try again. Space it out. Pull it back a little bit so we still get some of that dotted feathers in there with the collar. Not too much though. I still want the purple and the white to be the most dominant. So we'll just make sure that that stays back and it doesn't slowly slip down over top of the joining part, which will happen often. But there's a trick to beat that, and it's happening right now. So I am not backing out of this. I'm dropping a piece of glue and I'm going to say screw you and continue forward, because that's some all bullshit, man. Alright. So it looks pretty good. I'm just going to trim down the end here to make it easier to hold and work with. The hair also moves around a little bit less because it's not glued in, right? So you can still manipulate it a lot and move it down, move it around into places where, you know, it's fuller in one spot, less in another. So that's convenient. Just got to be careful when you trim the ends that you're not pulling and you're cutting, or else you'll pull the hair right out from underneath the string. Now, I've always had controversy in my own mind that every little bit of weight placed in different spots on the lure makes a big difference. So on this one, I obviously went with the front end weight, but I don't know. We'll see what happens there. It should move pretty good. Now, as you can see, it's still a little bit over top of the join, but we're going to do a little fixing it up, space it out properly, and then here we're going to do a little thing that I learned, and we're going to hold over where you have your first line, or pull back this way. It's easier to do it the other way, but this way I did it so that you could see. And you're going to choke up and tightly wrap back a little bit, another band around. Glue that down in 4 spots so it's nice and tight. And the old wrap that I used to place everything, I'm going to go in and I'm going to cut that right out, because that is going to end up, I'm going to also cut it in the shape that I want to attach the thread so that it will have the look that I desire for the gradual blend of the thread that will be the head. So I definitely do think that the weight of the lure relative to also the size of the blade, you know, you should definitely stay within a certain range for sizes of tails. I've definitely gotten too big. I've actually hit that point, but you definitely got to find out where the good medium is. Now, if you definitely want a lot of tail and kicking tail action, I highly recommend the double blade. Like, that spin just kicks the tail up in a crazy motion. So I trimmed off that end piece, popped some glue all up in the joint there. Now I'm done with the white thread. I'm going to go in and add that last piece on, which will be the bright purple, light purple, just so it matches the lure nicely. Not too bad, looks pretty tight. Not too much fur. I didn't really want too much going on up there. Yeah, I hope I've put this tutorial together in a fashion where you could get some of the supplies yourself if you had any of them, and you could make a lure yourself with me watching this video. If you do, follow me on Facebook, man. Hit me up, drop me a line, man. I'd love to see what you did. I'm all about sharing tips and tricks that I've learned throughout the years that I've been doing this. I definitely enjoy it. It does take time, but I like to stay creative in everything I do. That's why I definitely am totally obsessed with rattlesnake custom rods. What up? That shit is amazing. I cannot wait to get my own whole body. But yeah, I don't really think that anybody should safeguard secrets or tips or tricks. Sharing is caring. But I'm just going around here getting it nice and thick and tight, because I'm not really going to add too much glue to the thread. It's mostly going to be the super lac that cements everything in, because when I originally wrapped the fur with the beige string, it was soaked in glue to begin with, so wrapping that up was like wrapping it like a mummy, and that shit sealed for good. So we're getting to the end here. It looks pretty good. Oh, it slipped off. That always happens when you're working your way down. Sometimes it helps if you drop a little piece of glue in there just to keep the thread in place. It will slip. At least I've had the problems with it slipping. You gotta love that. Happens again. Screw that. Maybe there was just too much. I'm happy with that amount. It's tight. It looks good. So you should also consider, if you're making your own lures, what pound test line you're using. The rod, I find, really don't make that much of a difference. Well, it does, but I highly doubt you're going to be using something massive if you're using a small lure anyways. So I definitely find that I use my 7-foot the most, but a 5-foot works the best, that's for sure. My favorite setup is a 5-foot rod, medium action, with 8-pound test, monofilament. Actually, wait. What is it? Yeah, it is monofilament. But I guess that's just because that's what I have on me. I need to go out and get new line. But I don't like rocking braided line. I feel like the fish can see that. And I don't really rock leaders either, because you have a distance between the blade and the hook anyways. I hardly ever find a fish ever gets up in that zone. Which leads me to the reason why the blade does not match the tail at all. And that is, when I was researching spinners, it's supposed to apparently resemble predatory something chasing a bait fish or some type of bait. So I always made them match, and then I realized I really wasn't sure why, so I decided change it up, make them two completely different colors, so that when a fish is attacking it, it kind of has two options. So hopefully that doesn't fail. But we're going to glue up this headpiece that I made. I was going to decide to do a custom emblem in the head in this video, but due to the length I decided not to, so I'm just going to glue the bead to the head of the weight. The back end I'm going to leave non-glued, and then I'm just going to thread it up the same as the head of the tail, just so it matches nicely. Maybe it'll give a good appearance. I'm not really sure. I'm a big fan of red on my lures, but I didn't use any this time. That's not bad. The purple's fine. It's been working really good. I've heard a lot of talk about other people having a lot of success with purple too, so no complaints. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, and maybe in the future we can do a live stream or something. We can all enjoy doing something together, and I can make one, none of this fast forward stuff. People can shoot out questions, I can answer them right there. I can adjust making the lure to comments from the viewers, things they may want to see going into the lure, things they don't want to see. A lure we can put together and auction off. That'd be messed up, but who knows. So the lure giveaway is still popping. If we can make it to 100 subscribers, then we will do the draw then. Not really sure still how we'll exactly pick out the design, but I guess we can figure that out. We have time. I'm in no rush. For me, it's really not about the subscribers. It's about contacting and networking, just getting together with people who also enjoy fishing as much as I do, and getting creative with making your own fishing lures. Alright, that doesn't look too bad. I have to say it turned out really well. I hope that in doing a lure like this, I've covered a lot of different aspects. that I wanted to talk about. I may have missed some stuff. I'm not really sure. But in the end, she's adjointed. A lot of front end weight to make sure that that thing is spinning properly and the tail is doing whatever it wants. As I said before, I put that clip in there so that the tail and the hook could just swing freely. The thick feathers, or the thick stalk and the feather at the back, the three pieces keep the tail kind of centered, which is really helpful. So I'll be looking to get some good time on the water with this lure. So I hope you've enjoyed this. It's been helpful. Leave some comments. I'd love to hear what you thought. Or if you make anything, drop me a line. I'd love to see what it is. Stay tuned. We got more bucktail action in the works.